Yeah, 18, the Watford fan channel, another match preview coming into the crunch end of this championship season. This is the place to be for all your Watford fan YouTube content, so make sure you do subscribe to WD18. I'm your host, Jacob, Sam, Elliot, today to preview Watford versus Reading at Vicarage Road. A big game to start off the final 6 games of the season. Sam, I saw a little sigh there, mate. Is the stomach starting to turn a little bit?
Yeah, it is. Do you know what? Like, I am confident. I mean, we'll come on to that, but it's just the fact that, you know, it's Watford. We can do Watford things, and 6 games to go in this league, particularly, anything can happen. So, yeah, it's just the thought that I kind of feel like this season's gone really quickly as well. I can't believe it's 6 games to go already. It just feels like yesterday on the Friday night, getting ready to watch us against Middlesbrough. Craig Cathcart's header. It's just literally the time's gone like that. I mean, it was the third or fourth game we played Reading last time, and we lost 1-0.
Yeah.
And that literally feels like yesterday. So it's mental how quickly time's gone on. It's been quite fun for some parts of it, but I don't think the next 6 weeks are going to be fun at all. Going to be my heart.
Yeah. Mate, 100%. I'm already nervous, and someone put it in the chat. I actually haven't got any fingernails left already, so that's not the way to start the last 6 games of the season. Caroline's got the big question, Elliot. First off, how are you, mate? And then second of all, Caroline says, all we want to know is whether Elliot will be at the Vic tomorrow. Can you confirm, Elliot?
I feel like I need to big this up. Yes, I will be at the game tomorrow.
W incoming.
He's going to be holding Chalabar's hands as he walks out the tunnel.
Okay.
Well, I think someone put a petition out to chain Elliot to the Rookery. I don't think he's going to go that far, but he's going to be at the Vic tomorrow. But that's great news. How are you, Elliot? By the way.
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. Yes, it's been a good day. Press conference, that sort of thing. I always like a press conference. Always nice to chat to Cisco about the upcoming game. Hear how positive he is, as he always is. So yeah, I'm all good, thank you.
I'll tell you what. We'll dive straight into it, Elliot, with the press conference. What were the key points from Cisco Munoz today?
Well, like I say, he was really positive. He was asked about the pressures because now, like I say, it is crunch time. We are into the running. We're well and truly in the running now. And there are a lot of questions of, you must be nervous, or how is it like as a player compared to now? Do you really feel nervous? And he just said, I'm loving it. He said, I'm really excited for this running. He said he was more nervous beforehand when we were sort of lagging behind, when we were in sort of 5th and 6th. So yeah, he seems really positive at the moment. I actually asked him a little bit about having such a huge squad because we've had so many injury problems throughout the season that it feels a bit weird to almost have every single player at Cisco Munoz's disposal now. So I basically said, how do you manage that morale? Because we saw on Monday, Joseph Hungbo wasn't even in the squad and he didn't seem to have an injury. So it was one of those things where we've actually got to a point where there were match fit players that don't make the squad. So I basically said, how do you manage that morale? And he said, it's a great problem to have. And it's good that his players aren't selfish. He knows that they'll all do everything. He mentioned Troy Deeney, how he goes to the games even though he's injured. So he's just talking about the whole squad together. They're all pulling in the same direction, really positive. And the injury news is that everything's going well. So long may it continue. And yeah, I think he's looking forward to what will be a very competitive game tomorrow night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big game tomorrow. We'll get into Reading and get the insight from Elliot on that as well. Sam, I wanted to touch on that togetherness really, because when we did the interview with Klebs, or like the chat with Klebs really, he mentioned that this is the most together he's seen a Watford squad during his time at the football club since he kind of arrived back in 2017. From your perspective as a supporter, do you feel that togetherness, even though we aren't at games at the moment?
It's really difficult because we aren't at games. And, you know, quite ironic you asked that question when yesterday, the anniversary of the Wolves game was probably the most together, and connected that I think most Watford fans have felt to the football club. So the bar's quite high with that. So I would probably say no, but that's probably because we aren't at games. But, I've spoken about this quite a bit, but it's just mental how this Watford squad at the start of the season, we were all like, all right, let's see what they've got. They went from being incredibly disliked by a lot of supporters where we were very critical of a lot of them to now one of the most loved Watford sides in the Pozzo era where, arguably the best side to watch as well. So it's just mental the way that football works in the space of a couple of months and in the space of a season. But in answer to your question, it's a difficult one because we aren't at games, but you can certainly see the togetherness within the squad.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you feeling confident going into tomorrow, Sam, after the back of the... I'll tell you what, we'll review that Easter bank holiday weekend. We'll start with you, Elliot, on that. I spoke to Shane yesterday, and he said, I think we mentioned on the match reaction, it was a point game for Watford. And I think that was kind of confirmed after the results we saw with Swansea losing and Brentford drawing. From your perspective, how do you review the bank holiday weekend? 4 points we picked up, maybe not the best performances, but from your perspective, how do you view it?
Yeah, the performances worried me slightly, if I'm honest. You know, we're still unbeaten after this little Easter run, so I guess there's plenty to be positive about. The performances weren't quite up to standard compared to how we have been, and I think Cisco, Munoz and the squad recognised that. You could see they weren't happy with the point. I think fans would be more disappointed if they were happy with the point. So I think there will be room to improve, and I think they will show that improvement hopefully tomorrow night. And yeah, on reflection, I'm happy because now at this point in the season, you have to put us alongside Brentford and Swansea. You have to talk about how Brentford and Swansea are doing. And the fact is they're not doing very well at all. And a draw for us is a terrible performance. I'm sure Swansea fans would love a draw right now with the fact that they've lost 4 in a row and they've not scored. So we've got to look at the positives. And the fact is we're in a very, very good position, and hopefully we can build on that. So overall, in hindsight, looking back at this little Easter run, I'm happy. I could have been happier. I think we could have pretty much been up by now if things had gone a little bit better. But yeah, overall, I'm pleased with how things have gone since the international break.
Sam, similar question to you. How do you reflect on the Easter weekend? Because again, another thing I mentioned with Shane was, I think we can all agree the intensity with the Watford performance dropped a bit. I think particularly with the press, with the front three. Do you put that down to the international break and just the congestion of fixtures, maybe the pressure, the players are feeling the pressure a little bit more? But from your perspective, how did you view it as well?
I don't think pressure has really been a problem with this Watford squad in particular. I know there's been a couple of games this season where, you know, we just haven't turned up and been really poor. But I'd say that's more down to tactically, poor performances from the manager. But yeah, I'd say that Monday looked like a really tired performance, I think is the best way to say it. And, you know, that contributes from not having a game in a week. Your body's accustomed in the Championship playing once, twice a week. And having that time off probably really knocks the momentum out of you and, you know, really takes the sting out of your tail. And, you know, if you asked a lot of these Watford players, they probably would have said after the, what was the last game before the international break again? Birmingham. They probably
Birmingham.
Birmingham.
I forgot these so many games.
They probably said they would have wanted to play on the Tuesday rather than waiting 2 weeks in the international break, even though, you know, some of them got a rest just for momentum purposes. But so I would put it down to the international break and just being kind of taken out of the swing of things. But I think tomorrow will be a really, really good opportunity for us to, you know, we've had a couple of games now to bed ourselves back in, challenging opponents tomorrow night who still also have a lot to play for. And it'll be a really good opportunity for them to just, work their way back into form. I mean, we're not even off form, work their way back into momentum.
Well, that's the thing, Elliot. We both mentioned, I think we all agree as Watford fans, maybe the last 2 performances haven't been as good as we've seen in the previous how many games. But what needs to maybe step up a gear for this one? Because as Sam mentioned, Reading are a really difficult team to play against and they've got a lot of quality.
It's a weird one. I think I agree with Sam that maybe we looked a little bit tired. I think there were a couple of players that just looked a little bit off. And I think probably this week has helped having Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off. I mean, I would prefer to play on Saturday. And I think it's a bit dodgy that the EFL haven't given us an extra day's rest. But, you know, that I guess that doesn't really matter.
It should be a rest for the fans, mate, let alone the players. I can't deal with it.
In all fairness, I know, you know, I would much rather have had that extra day, but we are going to have 8 days before the playing against them who shall not be named. So, yeah. So
we are playing before both teams as well, both before Brentford and Swansea, so we can put the kind of scoreboard pressure on as well.
Yeah, exactly. So there are positives and negatives to all of it. You know, sorry, Elliot, if you want to carry on.
I'm completely agreeing with everything you're saying here. I think, we just looked at sort of 80% of the team we were before, and that's not something to be worried about. We're still in a very good position. We still played pretty well, and we still got 4 out of 6 points, still unbeaten in a long time. So there's still plenty to be positive about. But yeah, I think just a little bit more intensity in attack. I'd like the midfield to show a little bit more for the back 4, because I think at times we had to play it long because it was just a bit awkward with how we could play the passes. So I just think a little bit more team cohesion, which is a minor thing, and I'm sure that will be rectified for the next game and hopefully moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam, we mentioned about Joao Pedro actually, and it's Aaron in the comments here who says Does Joao Pedro need to be dropped for Friday's game? Difficult one, this, I think.
Yeah, it's a really weird one because he's on a bit of a goal drought. I didn't really think about it until until after the Middlesbrough game, and it must be 5 or 6 games since he last scored, and by his standards and for a team who want to be going up, it's probably not good enough if we're being honest with ourselves. But the difference with Joao Pedro is that he offers us so much more compared to other strikers when they're kind of on a goal drought. I look at, if we're being cynical, I look at Troy when he's not scoring. What is he really doing? While Joao, he can drop deep, he can link up play, and he can start attacks. And I don't want to make comparisons, but I look at Roberto Firmino at Liverpool. When he's not scoring, he can still be contributing. I've seen, only won Champions League and the Premier League, less so this season. But it's important. I wouldn't drop Joao simply because of the importance he has with linking up play and bringing other players into the game. Yeah,
absolutely. I think with Joao, it's Elliot, I think it was cleared up in the press conference today whether he was 100% fit, and he was, as Cisco mentioned. I didn't think he played his best. You could tell there was a lack of, maybe not the intensity levels that we've seen from Joao before, particularly off the ball. I think his movement was good. He had some great opportunities, but just wasn't at maybe in first gear on Monday. I wanted to ask you, Elliot, about this comment from Charlotte, who says, first choice midfield, Gosling, Hughes and Chalobah. Now, that would mean Gosling comes in for Zinchenko, which is a bit of a different choice and probably more going for the work rate option. Not to say Zinchenko doesn't work hard, but we all know Dan Gosling, he's similar to Cleverley in the sense that he's a grafter, he covers a lot of ground, a lot of interceptions. Do we need to maybe adjust that midfield balance, or would you keep it the same as what we've seen before?
I can understand the calls to bring in Dan Gosling because I can understand how it sort of works against Reading, but I think Philip Zinchenko is probably the better fit for this one, just with how sort of all action Reading are in midfield and how fast-paced they are, and the fact that they carry the ball quite a lot. So it's a difficult one. I can understand bringing in Gosling. I think personally I'd have Zinchenko just because of what he offers us going forward. Will Hughes, and this has been to his benefit, is a player that often actually sits in line with the centre halves at times, and he's often very far back in midfield. And Nathaniel Chalobah, as much as he presses forward and he sometimes plays in the Cleverley role, as we could call it, again, he's not an attacking midfielder by any stretch. So I think having Philip Zinchenko does offer us that extra bit of creativity that I don't think Dan Gosling quite offers. I like bringing Gosling on to settle a game. I think that's quite a nice way of doing things. And I can, like I say, I understand completely why Gosling could start, and I don't think I'd complain if he did, but I just think Zinchenko offers that little bit more, particularly against Reading and the midfield that Reading have in that 4-2-3-1. So I think Zinchenko over Gosling, personally, I'd keep it the same.
I thought Zinchenko played quite well the other day. A lot of people, he came under a lot of criticism actually, and I thought it was unwarranted. I personally think he's getting better by the week, and particularly against Middlesbrough. I just feel like it was, we mentioned on the match reaction how they, attempt to pack out the midfield and, surround kind of the midfield people so they can't pick up the ball. That's why Will Hughes struggled actually. But I thought Zinchenko, he picked up some really good positions off the ball. If you watch him, even though he didn't always get the ball, you could tell if he got the ball, something was going to happen. And I personally thought he did really well. And I did think the criticism was a bit excessive.
Yeah, and I think also, Sam, just to add to that, what Zinchenko maybe offers you to the other midfielders is a bit more of an attacking threat going forward. I think he probably carries the ball the best out of all, or maybe all the midfielders we have. And what we do forget is he's not a natural central midfielder as well. As we mentioned in the chat with him, which you can check out on the channel, he did say he prefers to play out wide, whether that's left or right. So we're seeing a different side to Philip, and I think hopefully his contribution with the goal the other day gives him a bit more confidence to get in those areas, because we know he can be deadly.
No, exactly. I mean, I tweeted after the Middlesbrough game where a lot of people replied to it saying I didn't think he was great. I wrote Zinchenko, fantastic signing, and for some reason, some how do I say it, Bodo Glint, got hold of it, and they were retweeting it, and they were, a couple in the comments were like, wait till you see him on the right, and then you'll see what a good signing he was. So we certainly haven't seen the best from him yet, and I personally think he's getting better by the week, and he's growing in confidence as well as he kind of becomes more accustomed to the Championship.
Yeah, completely agree with you, Sam, there on PZ7. I wanted to ask you, Elliot, just on the topic of the midfield, is Tom Cleverley's nearing return. I think, it seems like he's maybe targeting the Luton game, is it? I think, is it that game, Elliot? Have I got that right?
I think he's going to have Cisco said he'd have a fitness test tomorrow and they'd double check tomorrow, but I don't see them rushing him straight in, and I don't think he'll start. So he might be on the bench, but yeah, Luton I think is probably the right estimate.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. On Monday, I thought we missed a player like Tom Cleverley. From your perspective, it does feel we need maybe a little bit more, as you mentioned with the tempo, Elliot, a little bit more of a boost in that midfield. So, do you think when Cleverley is fit, do you then bring him back in? I know this is looking further ahead, maybe a bit down the line, but do you bring him back in for the last 5 games of the season?
I think if we look at it at a team-by-team basis, I would have him in to play Luton because I also think it suits how we could play against Luton. And I think at that point, we can sort of judge it based on his performance. And that's no slight on Philip Zinckernagel because, we've been waxing lyrical about how good he's been even just now. And we've said how well he's settled in already in an unfamiliar position. But I think having a midfield 3 of Cleverley, Hughes and Chalobah could be really effective against Luton. And I think that'll probably give us the edge. And then from there, I'd see how sharp he is, see how sort of the midfield changes, see how the dynamic changes, because it's been a little while since we've had that 3 midfield and a lot has changed since then. So, yeah, I think I'd judge it then and moving forward, hopefully bring Zinckernagel in on the left or on the right because Ken Semmer's pretty much had to play every game this season. And I'd like to see maybe a rotation there, Ken Semmer and Zinckernagel. Ismail Assar's playing every week and to his credit, he doesn't look like he's having to play every week. He looks like he's always fresh and ready to go. So, yeah, it should be nice to have an extra option on the wings as well. So, yeah, I'd go with that for Luton and then moving forward, see how it goes.
Yeah, we've got to keep PZ7 in just to see that celebration, Sam.
Oh, so annoying. I thought it was his goal the other day, and then it went on.
I thought he was going to go up to the screen and go 7. I was thinking, right, Sam's going to have that.
I think he'll do it. I do think he will do it. I think
you're going to drop him a message.
I will. I'll drop him a message if he does it. I will. I'll get the picture framed on my wall. I'll get. rename Vicarage Road the PZ7 goal celebration. Get a stand after it or something.
We've got it. We've got the content already if he does do it. Just going back on to tomorrow, Sam. Are you feeling nervous for it? Are you feeling confident? I think sometimes I'm probably guilty of it as a Watford fan. I'm so concerned with other teams and how they set up that maybe I forget actually how good we are as a team. And when we're playing at full flow, whether it's Norwich or whether it's any other team, we can beat them. So is it just, again, a case of if we turn up and get the job done and execute our game plan, we will get 3 points?
Well, yeah, I think so. I think application and effort are the main 2 things with this Watford side that can win any game in this division because, with the exception of Norwich and, you could argue maybe a couple of other teams, on paper, we absolutely, dominate most teams in the league. But again, that's only on paper. So it comes really down to effort and application, which, in early parts of the season, we weren't really seeing it. But the last few weeks, it's been absolutely superb. And that's when we start to blow teams away simply because of the quality we have. So I think if we stick to Cisco's game plan and if every player is at an 8 out of 10, 9, 10 out of 10, then, we win comfortably.
And Elliot, on that, with Reading, what can we expect from them? Who do we need to look out for from that Reading team?
It's a worrying one, and I'm really nervous for tomorrow. They've got a lot of
don't say that.
Really good players in there. They've got Michael Elise, who is 19 years of age, and he's having the season of his life. He's being touted for moves to some of the biggest clubs in the country.
By Munich, isn't it, something as well?
Yeah,
which rate? Well, there's a Reading pair off to Bayern.
Yeah, Omar Richards, the left back. We also need to look out for it because I think he's back fit now. So he's another one to worry about. But yeah, Elise scored a brilliant goal the other day. He plays in attacking midfield. He's not afraid to hit a long shot, which I'm slightly worried about because I think that's the sort of thing that we could struggle with here and there. They play a 4-2-3-1, as I've mentioned. They play very quick football, very entertaining football, and I think that'll be a fun battle tomorrow as well. I think it will be a really entertaining game. They've got the likes of Yaku Maite, the Yak as they call him, and he's brilliant. He plays out wide or he plays as a striker. I imagine he won't play up front because Lucas Joao is their goal scorer. He had a little bit of a dry spell, but he's back in the goals now, and he's a weird one because he has a lot of shots and he scores a lot of goals, but a couple of times he has some howlers here and there, and a couple of times.
Was it Barnsley away?
Oh, yeah. That's an interesting one. But yeah,
his penalties are really poor as well. I mean, watch them get a penalty tomorrow night and score.
yeah.
Is Ajari another player we need to look out for, Elliot?
Yeah, obviously Ajari. They have a lot of their play down the left-hand side with
overlapping.
Andy Rinomota as well. Yeah, but obviously Ajari is one that often goes under the radar because he's not got necessarily the same statistical attacking output as someone like Lucas Joao or as Michael Elise or even as Maite, who's played up front. They've got George Puskas on the bench. So there's a lot of attacking threat there. And they've got I think a lot of where they've fallen short this season has been through injuries. They've had so many injuries. Even their manager got injured. I think he broke his arm or something like that earlier on in the season. But yeah, so they've had injuries aplenty, but they seem to be all good now, a little bit like Watford. And it's slightly worrying. They've got their captain, Michael Morrison, back. And I think they've always looked a little bit more assured in defence when he's been there. So I'm nervous. I am nervous because if you play against a full strength Reading side, you might have problems. But we do have the best home record in the country, and it is ours to lose. So there are reasons to be positive and also to be very, very nervous for tomorrow night.
Yeah, great insight from Elliot there. Sam, from your perspective, do you think actually the fact that Reading play a bit more expansively, if we actually look at the offensive stats, Watford have scored one more goal than this season, 40 games played, 57 goals scored. Reading have scored 56 goals. So it's the cue there being a 0-0 now. It's going to be a goalless draw tomorrow. But Sam, do you think actually, as Elliot mentioned, the fact that they have so much attacking talent, they're not? I very much doubt they're going to come to Vicarage Road and park the bus, right? Do you think that could actually play into our hands a little bit more?
I think it could, just based off the teams that we've played in the past. I know, Elliot quite likes to go back to that Barnsley game where they kind of pressed us a bit higher and we were able to get in behind a bit more. So I do think it will play into our hands a bit. And I don't think they will come apart the bus because I think they need the points as much as we do, probably more than we do, to be honest, as well. So they'll be looking to get the win. And I do think we play better, not on the counter attack, but when there is space in behind to run, rather than when they just stick a couple of men on Sarr and on the midfielders and sit really deep. So I do think it is going to be an entertaining game tomorrow. I mean, not for us as Watford fans, but
oh mate, oh no! This is the first time since doing the channel. Obviously, we started it in the Premier League, but when I haven't actually seen us get promoted while doing the channel, so I don't know how this is going to pan out. But I'm nervous already. I think we might have to cancel the watch along, Sam. I don't think that can go ahead.
Oh,
goodness me. Elliot, from your perspective, how do we approach the game? If you were Cisco Moonoff going into tomorrow, knowing Reading's attacking ability, maybe not as good defensively. Obviously, we have an incredible home and defensive record. How should we approach the game tomorrow, in your opinion?
I think Reading are the sort of team where we don't need to necessarily change the way we play to cater to them. I think you could make an argument for Middlesbrough. Maybe you would need to do that on Monday because of how Neil Warnock is and his typical tactics and his defensive play. But I think against Reading, we'd be okay and we'll sort of do all right if we can just play our way. I think we need to put a lot of focus on the wings and try and trouble their fullbacks who are very good. Andy Yadom and Omar Richards. There's a reason Omar Richards is going to Bayern Munich. It's not a small move to make. But yeah, I think we've just got to try and exploit that. Try and get the ball into Will Hughes as much as possible as well, because it'll be a difficult battle in the midfield. But I think he's probably going to be the best midfielder on the pitch. I know Elise is good. I know Rinamota's good. I know Josh Lawrence good. But I think
Will Hughes
is slightly above them. Yeah, I think I'd give that to him. So yeah, I think we need to just try and make use of our attacking threat, try and make use of the wings. Ismail Assar and Kiko Femenia, providing they both start on the right-hand side, is always deadly. And I think that could cause them a lot of problems. So we do have to sort of just play our own way, use our strengths to the absolute maximum. And hopefully Joao Pedro's back in the goals. I think sometimes we forget how high Joao Pedro's set the bar as well, because he is a very young player, and he wasn't even a natural striker until quite recently, and he's sort of been chucked in at the deep end, and I think he's thrived, and I think this has been a breakout season for him. So hopefully he's back in the goals. Hopefully he's performing to as high a standard as we know he can perform, and I think we'll be okay. So as much as I'm nervous, at the same time, I know we've got enough. So do
you think they'll be interested in the summer for him? I know there are papers in Spain mentioning Real Madrid might already be having a look at him, but do you think it's too soon? There will be.
So go on, Elliot, mate.
Like, I think if we go up, I think he'd stay. I don't think that would ever be I don't think he's developed enough, and that's no disrespect to him because we know he's brilliant, but I don't think he's developed enough.
Yeah.
As say, like where people just said, oh, Richarlison could go to Everton as he did. I don't think a team like Everton would then be looking at Joao Pedro in the same way as they did Richarlison. I think there's still more room for development, but at the same time, I think quite controversially, I think there's actually a higher ceiling there than Richarlison. I think he's got more to offer in the long term than Richarlison. So I think for this summer we'll be okay. Be interesting to see how he plays in the Premier League if we do go up. If we don't go up, I'm sure that there'll be teams in Europe that will want to chuck a bit of money at us, and I just hope we've got what it takes to keep him, and I hope he understands that hopefully there's a project being built at Watford that will suit him in the long term.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let us know what you think in the comment section, guys, about that. I mean, from my perspective, I think as Elliot mentioned, there will always be interest for a 19-year-old player who's come over to a different country, been one of the best young players in this league this season, and and actually what I forget is he's come from Brazil, 19 years old, led the line of a promotion-pushing attack. I think we actually forget that, how good this guy is. Like, it is ridiculous. There's always going to be interest. And I think one thing to mention, Sam, is, we are going to be asking a lot of money for someone to come in. I mean, we are talking big figures for us to sell Joao, and he would want to leave. And as Elliot, and if he would want to leave, that as well. But I think the great thing about Watford is that there's a project in place if we do get promoted this season for him to really grow and increase his profile and increase his value and increase his ability, improve his ability as well. So exactly. I think as long as we get promoted this season, there'll always be interest. There'll always be. I mean, even before, when he was at Fluminense, just to go on it, I remember reading, I think it was from the Brazilian papers, that Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, I mean, we're talking some of the biggest clubs in the world were interested in Joao. But as Elliot mentioned, the great thing about Watford is there is a project in place. In terms of tomorrow, Sam, actually speaking of Joao, you mentioned that it's a difficult situation whether we start him. I would personally start him, but could you see Cisco tweaking the lineup as a whole from the Monday game?
I don't think there'll be big tweaks. I don't think there'll be anything of note. I think the back four will be the same. I think realistically the midfield three will be the same as well. The only one really is whether Joao starts or not, because of his performance the other night, and maybe the ankle still in the back of Cisco's mind as well. So I don't think there will be big changes. I think realistically it will be unchanged tomorrow night.
Elliot, for you?
He likes Isaac's success, and I think we could see Isaac's success start down the middle, and we could see Ken Sema on the left and Ismail Assar on the right. So I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't be against Andre Gray starting in there, because I think he could do a pretty good job. But I agree. I think he'll be unchanged.
Yeah, be a really interesting one. We'll get your score predictions in just a moment. Let us know in the comment section what your score predictions are, by the way. Sam, just to wrap up, as it was, and Sam and Elliot, just as it was 2 years ago, what was it? It wasn't yesterday, it was the day before, from it was yesterday, from the semi-final against Wolves. Number one, Sam, did you watch it back, the whole thing?
Not. I didn't. No, it was last year, I think, because the FA Cup semi-finals were postponed until after the lockdown. They showed them again on BBC One, I think, and I watched it back then, and I've watched the extended highlights over and over again. That day was just unbelievable to be a Watford fan. I tweeted how, obviously you're always going to support kind of, your local team and the team you brought up to support, but you're under so much pressure with all your mates around you supporting Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool, all those teams, and you're just little old Watford watching your club trying to survive from administration in the Championship, hoping not to get relegated. And, it's days like that that make it all worth it. And it was an unbelievable day. And I think that as a Watford fan, I think the only thing that would top that is winning a trophy, because the whole roller coaster of emotions that day, it was bleak when Raul Jimenez scored. We hadn't really turned up yet, and then just absolute explosion behind the goal when Troy equalised from the spot, and then it was more disbelief when Deulofeu got the winner, and there were hints of luck in there when Ivan Cavallero got around Gomez but then hit it with his wrong foot. And I'm going off on a tangent. We could talk about this game for absolutely hours, but unbelievable day.
Elliot, is there one lasting memory from that game that you took away?
It was the sort of period of extra time, in between full time and extra time, where everyone sort of forgot that it was 2-2. I think we all just assumed we'd won at that point because I actually
Yeah.
remember
Oh,
when
yeah.
Delafeu scored, it felt inevitable
100%.
when he scored the second goal.
There was only one team that was winning in extra time. It was always going to be us. Wolves were never winning at that point.
But could you imagine if we'd have done all that, we'd have celebrated for the whole of that period, and they beat us like 5-2 or something.
That's a great point, Elliot. That 15 was it? No, so maybe 10 minutes or so between full time and extra time. I think us as Watford fans, we all believed we were going to win it. There was no other team winning it that day. You could see that Wolves players' heads had dropped. Their fans had lost belief, and they made some substitutions, didn't they? Yeah. Elliot, sorry, mate. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, it just says a lot, the fact that, obviously it's the last minute winner, but we were absolutely bouncing at that end of the ground in that little break in between, while Wolves fans were just, you see the picture of the guy with his mask up with it holding his eyes, and it's what a picture. But I mean, it's just I know you asked Elliot the question. An underrated moment was it was 5 minutes to go and we were 2-1 down, and we were launching balls into the box, and Capu had one on the halfway line. And Adrian Mariappa dives to the floor so it can go over his head. So that was an unbelievable moment. But
it was the other way around, wasn't it?
Well, it was Capu.
Yeah, it might have been the other way around. It was the other way around. There's the Etienne Capu mention of the video.
Yeah, Sam's actually got that picture on his wall. He's not showing it in the background. I'll tell you what, lads, just to wrap up, it was nice to have a little bit of nostalgia looking back at that game 2 years ago, just yesterday. Caroline says, I was nervous before this preview heading into tomorrow. Now I'm really nervous. We've got a few score predictions here. We've got Robert, who says a tight nervous 2-1 win. Melanie says a 2-1 win to the Orns. Amy, another 2-1 win. 2-0 says Ben. Another 2-1 says Ollie. And Caroline's gone big and positive. 3-0 win. And Charlotte's gone for a 2-1. Elliot, score prediction.
I was just thinking if anyone's ever predicted an opposition win on here, like actually.
Elliot, it's not
me and Sam. I'll go. I think it's my streak's got to end at some point. I'll go 2-2.
No, it can't end.
I have to. 2-2.
It can't end. It can't end, Elliot. It can't. I think we should have get down to the games anyway.
In the spirit of the Wolves game, I'll go 3. I'll go 3-2 to Watford.
3-2. Got a 2-0 from Cormac. Kieran says 2-1. A lot of positive score predictions, and a really nice comment here from David Prutton, actually. He says, if we were talking about young guys performing well, you three guys are doing a fantastic job on WD18 this season. David, thank you so much. Very, very kind of you. We really do appreciate it. We love doing the videos. Big period for the football club. Oh, my God. The nerves are starting to build. The heart rate's going. And the games on the inside. Yeah. Sam. Elliot, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll be back tomorrow. Elliot's going to be at the game, obviously, so he won't be on tomorrow. But myself, Sam and Shane will be here for a match reaction. Fingers crossed after a Watford win. Thank you very much to all of you who watch live. If you're watching this back, please do leave a like on the video. Don't forget to comment down below your thoughts. And we'll see you very, very soon. Come on, you Hornets.